Okay, so here's part 3 of me reading Maria the Beautiful. I'm sorry, this may be a really long video because this is a really long book. I wrote this when I was about 16. Then Milo saw Robert return from the bank with fresh, clean fish and decided to offer him a cookie. Robert, would you like to have the last cookie? Asked Milo. Yes, thank you, said Robert. I knew that Maria would make a suitable wife, said Robert as he took a bite of his cookie. The next morning, Maria sat by herself on a bench that was next to a rose bush. Daniel saw her and wanted to join her. Daniel sat beside Maria and held her hand. Do you miss your parents? Asked Daniel. I do miss my parents very much, and I really wish I had really wanted to get to know them better, said Maria. I know how you feel. When my father died, I felt like it was only the day before he died, that was the day I met him, said Daniel. Daniel placed his arm around Maria's shoulder and let her head rest on his shoulder. Then Maria and Daniel stared face to face at each other and blushed, the color of rosy red on their cheeks. That afternoon, while Maria and Daniel were out on the balcony, Maria saw that the bandit had a torch and was coming to set the village on fire. Maria was worried, and so was Daniel. Daniel, we have to do something. My friend Timothy will get hurt, said Maria. She ran as fast as she could, with Daniel trailing behind. Maria, wait for me, called Daniel as he caught up to Maria. Maria and Daniel looked around the village, and suddenly they heard a child crying. Mama, Mama, cried the child. It was Timothy. He was frightened and wanted his mother and was looking for his siblings. Maria wiped Timothy's tears, and both ran around looking for Timothy's mother, while Daniel hauled all the children out of their cottage. After searching for hours, Daniel had found Timothy's mother. She was in a white nightgown, and she had a really high fever and was too weak to leave her bed, so Timothy carried her off. So Daniel carried her out of the house, and the children stared as Daniel softly placed her on the ground. Mama, Mama, cried Timothy as he gently pressed his paw against his mother, but she wouldn't wake up. I believe that your mother has pneumonia. I think that we lost her, said Daniel. The next morning, Maria had a funeral for Timothy's mother. Timothy and the other children began to cry. I know someone who can take care of Timothy and the others, said Maria. The next morning, a kind seamstress who was Maria's friend saw that young Timothy, his siblings, and the other orphans were living on the streets. The seamstress wore a large white hat and a turquoise shawl. She had brown eyes, a pink nose, white fur. Fur was thin, and she talked in an old-fashioned English accent. The hat she wore was large at the top and ruffled at the bottom with a turquoise bow. Her name was Laura. When Laura was a young child, she had lost both her parents after the cholera broke out in the village. She was sent to work in an embroidery shop, and she had been living and working there ever since she was a young child. She saw orphan Timothy, his siblings, and the other children, and walking out on the street sadly. She walked outside because she felt bad for them. She dearly loved children and longed to have a few of her own. You poor children, you look like you don't have anywhere to go, said Laura. Timothy's mother had just passed away after the fire broke out, and they have nowhere to go because the orphanage is burnt down, and so Timothy's cottage, said Maria. Why don't you come live with me? I would love to have some children of my own, said Laura. Laura adopted Timothy, his siblings, and the other orphans. Daniel and Maria walked off smiling at each other. Goodbye and thank you, said Laura as she waved goodbye to Maria and Daniel. When Maria and Daniel were walking back to the mansion, they heard footsteps coming from the creaking roofs and cottages. A large amount of smoke slowly came in front of their faces. Daniel thought that he and Maria were hearing and seeing things, but suddenly the village bandit showed up out of nowhere with a metal pole in his paws that was all red and rusty and hit Daniel in the head, but the rest rusty pole, which happened to knock him out. The bandit grabbed Maria, covered her mouth before she could scream, and took her away. The next morning, Timothy and his siblings and their adoptive mother Laura were taking their morning stroll when Timothy's younger sister spotted Daniel lying against a cottage. So did Milo when he was carrying flour for his bread. "Mama, look," said Timothy's younger sister as she pointed at Daniel. Then Timothy and the others had remembered they had saw the village bandit kidnap Maria and take her into the forest. Timothy grabbed a rag that was in a barrel full of water and wrung it out and placed it on Daniel's head. Milo walked over to check up on Daniel. Robert came over to help. Everyone grew silent and stared when Daniel woke up and removed the rag from his head. "What happened? Where's Maria? Is she all right?" asked Daniel. "No, he's gone. Maria is gone. He took her," said Timothy. Who took her?" asked Daniel. "The village bandit. He's got Maria," said Timothy. "How did you know?" asked Daniel. "We saw him take her into the forest in the woods, and he was stepping on his foot to make her and let her go," said Timothy. "Master Daniel, you'd better hurry. You won't know what that awful bandit will do to the fair and to Maria," said Milo. "I'm worried if she's with him. Anything could happen to her. I hope he didn't harm her," said Laura. "That bandit is a no-good traitor. He's holding her captive in a manor outside the village." "Robert, how do you know that?" asked Milo. "I passed by it this morning when I was coming back from getting my fish from the brook that I always go to, and I saw Maria banging on the window, and it looked like she was crying for help," said Robert. Timothy, Milo, Robert, you three and the others stay here while I go and rescue Maria. Don't worry. If he touches one patch of fur on her head, I'll think of a way to make sure that he never comes back to this village again," said Daniel, telling Maria that he was madly in love with her. Laura and Milo, Timothy and Timothy's siblings, and Robert agreed by smiling and nodding their heads and obeyed exactly what Daniel said as they watched him go off. Daniel walked for hours through a spooky forest. The forest had so many dead trees and no creature could survive, and it was so dark that no one in the village who walked into the forest could see. Daniel didn't care if it was scary. He just wanted to save Maria. He kept walking until he found a large worn manor. The red paint was chipped on the outside and the windows were cracked. On the inside, the black wallpaper was torn from room to room, but the chimney looked like it new with its plain red bricks. Daniel listened and heard crying coming from outside the manor. It was Maria. The bandit had held her captive in a small, empty room as he began to argue with Maria. He had placed Maria in a chair to make her listen. "Now, my dear, I will give you two choices. Either become my bride, or your lover boy's head will go under the guillotine, and it shall be sliced off." To the bandit, he put his finger across his neck as if it were his head that was about to get sliced off. "Oh my goodness," said Daniel, whispered Daniel as he put his hands to his throat in a frightened expression. He had never been frightened in his entire life. "Oh, please, you mustn't," said Maria as she begged the bandit mercy with tears running down her cheeks to spare Daniel's life. "Why should I?" asked the bandit. "I mustn't speak of it. You'll probably still kill him, and he's not afraid of you. He's the bravest mouse in all of England," said Maria as tears filled her eyes in anger and an angry face with her arms crossed. "If you don't marry me, then he'll become a dead, headless soldier who won't be brave," said the bandit. Suddenly, the bandit left with the door locked. Then Maria began to cry as she tried to escape, but with tears slowly sliding down her face. "Please, oh please, you mustn't try to kill him," said Maria as she began banging on the door, crying. Daniel picked up a light brown old rope that he had found next to a dead plant and threw it to the top of the roof, and it wrapped around the chimney. He began climbing it up to the chimney, but as Daniel was peeking through, he accidentally fell through the chimney and got all covered in black dust from the coal in the fireplace. Daniel shook off the dust, and it vanished into thin air, and he went from floor to floor to look for Maria. Maria yelled Daniel, then he started to be quiet because he thought that the bandit would hear him. What am I thinking? I can't let him hear me. And if he does, he'll cut off my head, and he'll have Maria. It would break my heart if I never saw her beautiful smile again, thought Daniel. Then Daniel slowly placed his foot on the floor gently. It began to make a creak sound, so Daniel crawled on the floor. Meanwhile, Daniel's mother was very worried about him. She had the entire village looking for him because she was afraid that he might have lost her only child like she had lost her husband. She had every one of the guards in the village in this mansion looking for him. "Oh dear, he's disappeared again," said his mother. Then one of the guards came up to her. "Any sign of my boy?" "No, my lady. Not since this morning. Not since he was sitting on the bench with Maria this morning," said the guard. "Where did she go? I didn't see her this morning either," asked Daniel's mother. No one knows where she went off to. She's not in the village, and she's not in the mansion. I bet that Master Daniel went looking for her because she could be in real trouble right now. That bandit has been destroying village houses," said the other guard. I'm worried he could be killed. He's just like his father," said Daniel's mother. "What do you mean?" he asked the guard. "I mean that he's probably doing it for love. I think that he's fallen in love with her." "I'm in love with her," said Daniel's mother. Then another guard came up to Daniel's mother. "My lady, I had just found out news from the villagers," said the guard. "She was kidnapped by the village bandit, and he's forcing her to marry him, or else he'll chop off Master Daniel's head," said the guard. "Oh dear, I can't let them harm Daniel," said Daniel's mother. "What's worse, my lady, is that bandit will break Master Daniel's heart," said the guard. Okay, so I'm going to stop the video here because it's getting kind of long, so I will see you in the next part. Bye.